workshop basically out of necessity. I noticed a lot of my clients were coming in with fraudulent contracts, or they had, applied for a job online and were going for the next stages of the interview, but something wasn't right. So this really started because of a need in the community, and I figured we're employment centers and we should have something to be able to help our clients. And so if you have any experience that you want to share, or again, if you do have questions, please feel free to contribute. So this first video is just a little introduction for everybody. So as you're watching it, I want you to pay attention to the language the fraudsters are using, the pressure techniques, and we'll go from there. Little technical difficulty here. There we go.
Monday night, Don Belmonte got a threatening recorded message claiming to be from the Canada Revenue Agency. What are you thinking when you heard?
I'm going to scam these guys. I'm going to get them.
Oh, you thought that right away.
Right away, I knew. I thought this was going to be fun.
Such fun, she filmed the whole thing to put on Facebook.
Just for us,
You're such an actress. Have you done acting?
No, she's crazy.
The act is intense.
No, I have nothing. I only have my children and my pets.
Still, the impersonator demanded $2,500, and it got personal.
Ms. Mason, you also will be arrested, so make sure keep this thing in your mind that what happens to you soon after that.
Unbelievable, right? But it's what happens next that's unbelievable to even her.
For a new life for his husband, and now he's in jail.
No, let me tell you one thing. No need to cry. One thing more here, do not get worried about anything, because this is whatever we have told you is totally wrong. This is a scam, and we are just trying to take money out of you.
I have scammed the scammer. I scammed the scammer. I don't think anybody's ever scammed the scammer, but I scammed them.
Now, you just need to take care of that. From now onwards, if you get any call from anybody asking you for money, make sure don't pay anything to them.
He's giving you advice on how to deal with scammers.
Right.
Because he felt so badly for you.
Right. Amazing.
It's become a viral sensation with tens of thousands of views.
People call me Wonder Woman, and you're my hero, and you're my new best friend, and I think we're going to hit something that affects so many people.
Even her, prior to her father's death in 2004, he forked over $20,000, the victim of an email scam.
My dad was in such a vulnerable place. The chemotherapy had affected his brain, but it looks so legitimate, and this sounds so legitimate. So if you're not 100% there, this is how they get you. Oh no, look, it might be another scam.
This call is officially a final notice from CRA. CRA is filing lawsuits against you.
Okay, this is great. What do you think?
It's ridiculous.
Okay, so you didn't miss this. They called again, second time in 2 days, and we're going to call them again. But this time with her fake name, they rush her off the phone.
Oh, so I think it's a wrong number. Don't you worry about this. Nothing on the call.
Even though her act didn't work this time, she hopes she's had an impact.
That if it shuts down one person, or if I stopped one person from being scammed yesterday, then my job here is done.
Okay, does anyone have any thoughts about the video? So basically why I put this video in there is it can happen to anybody. This is just the CRA scams. You don't have to be a newcomer to experience this. There's a lot of people who do get scammed by them. And again, it can happen to anybody. It doesn't matter background, anybody. And I wanted you to pay close attention to, like I said, the language, the pressure they were using, what's going to happen to your children. So this is the kind of pressure techniques these scammers use. So hopefully today, after this workshop, that I'm hoping everyone knows the facts about employment fraud and steps to take to protect yourself and your clients. And what's important to note as well is part of protecting yourself is doing a lot of research, and I will be touching upon that as we go through the webinar. So on the agenda today, we're going to talk about internet scams and different types of fraud. We're going to talk, for some people it might be a refresher about the SIN number, when and where to use it. What is employment fraud? 5 main types of employment fraud and case studies. spot the fake job advertisement, common jobs in the summary, and how to protect yourself, and who do you contact. So keeping your SIN number safe. So only provide it when you're legally required to, and my next slide will have when you're supposed to. Do not carry it on you or program it into your phone or other electronic devices. How many times have we asked our clients for their SIN numbers during the intake, and sure enough they pull out their cell phones and look for their SIN number. Please, if you do and you're working with clients and you notice that, please advise them not to have it in their cell phone, or not even to email it out. Again, people lose their cell phones quite often, and it's their ID, and just advise them against it. Never use your SIN as a piece of ID. We had a client who went to a cell phone company, and they had requested a SIN number just to purchase the phone. So there's some questions around their practices for that. Never give out your SIN number over the phone, and never reply to emails that request your SIN. So when do you have to provide your SIN? So to your employer only when you're hired, for income tax purposes, financial institutions, Canada Pension Plan, employment insurance, child tax benefits, student loans, social assistance, government-funded programs. So these are the main areas that you would be using your SIN card. Other than that, if your client comes in and says, I was applying to a job online and they asked for my SIN number, there should be a red flag there. Any questions so far? This is a quick summary about internet scams, because there is quite a variety out there. So this is just a quick snapshot. I got this information from the little black book of scams, and it's available online for free, and it's a little quick snippet.
Here are some new words that have crept into our language. Spam, phishing, malware, malicious pop-up. And how about this one? Trojan horse? Yes, the internet is a beautiful thing, but it's full of weird words and devious traps. And you need to be aware of them, because criminals love the internet. Here we go. Malicious software. Scammers try to install this software on your computer so they can get access to files with your precious personal information. Always say no. Don't click on links or pop-ups, especially in an unsolicited or spam email. Stay away. Hit delete. Oh, by the way, spam is unwanted email, and it doesn't come in a can. Phishing. No pole, no water, no net, but it's all about fake, real-looking emails that appear to come from places you trust, like your bank. But they're not. No real trusted institution will ever ask you for personal info by email. Don't take the bait. Hit delete. Online auctions and internet shopping. After you've chosen an item, scammers try to pull you outside the legitimate auction site, then get your payment information and disappear. You lose your set of steak knives and your money. Use common sense. Good auction sites rely on trusted payment processes. This is the ultimate case of buyer beware. So, the internet is a wonderful thing if you think it through and avoid fraud. Check out the little black book of scams.
So the purpose of this particular video was just to give you a quick summary of the different type of scams that are out there and the terminology that's used. It's important for yourself and for your clients when you're working with them that, you know, if they do get an email from their bank asking for information to be updated, or if they do get information requesting more information from them, that they either delete it or, you know, share it with someone to make sure that it is either authentic or fraudulent, and I will talk about ways to do that. Also, I'd like to let you know there are other types of frauds as well. There's a lot of fraud out there, so there's only so much time, so we're focusing on employment, but there is dating fraud, there's timeshare fraud, charity, lottery, financial business opportunities, and there's a whole division set up for seniors fraud. So when we're working with our clients, you know, they're usually looking for all kinds of work. It could be looking for engineers, dishwashing, anything. And basically what Does anyone see anything wrong with these types of questions? So if you're looking at these kind of questions, does anything seem odd about these questions? So at first glance, no, they seem straightforward. You know, who would like to work from home? Who wants to make a good salary? So on the surface, these questions seem reasonable. However, if any of us have answered yes to any of these questions, we're all prime targets and at risk for employment fraud. Because what they do is they target individuals looking for employment, and they target specific areas. So it doesn't matter what job you're doing, you will be a target for employment fraud. So this one in particular, this video, the next one, is more about specifically employment scams. And I'd just like you to pay attention to how they work and what's involved and how they get people in the buy-in process. It starts by getting people that are in a vulnerable place. So when we're looking for work, we're in a vulnerable place. So it starts from there, and then you can see the next steps.
Face it, we all know that you have to work hard to make money. But don't you secretly wish there was a shortcut to riches? Well, that's where crooks jump in with employment scams, making big promises to people looking for jobs, taking their money, and delivering nothing. If you hear this, make a fortune without leaving your living room. That could be a front for illegal money laundering activity or a pyramid scheme. Either way, it's almost certainly a fairy tale. If you hear this, just invest a few $100s up front, and we'll set you up for life. What do you think the scammers are really after? Yep, your cash. Once they've got it, you've got a garage full of useless products and their history. And if you hear this, you're hired as our secret shopper. Beware. Crooks may ask you to deposit into your bank account checks they send you, take a commission, and then send money back to them through a money transfer service. Problem is, the checks are fake and your bank account takes the hit. There's no shortcut to them. But do your research. Hang on to your personal information. And really look hard at any job that seems too good to be true, because it almost certainly is. Learn more. Check out the Little Black Book of Scams.
So what is employment fraud? It's basically any false, deceptive, or misleading solicitation offering employment and requesting an advance fee to secure the job or obtain the materials to perform the job. Any job offer involving money transfer or wiring funds related to cashing monetary instruments. So what's really important when you're working with your clients is to let them know that they do not have to pay to get a job. And that's where the scams come in, because they promise people, oh, we'll give you training, or we'll do, you know, you can have the job, but you just need to pay this fee. So it's really important that you do not have to pay any money to get a job. So we're going to, usually in this workshop, I break people up into groups and they work on these 5 different types of employment fraud. But today we're going to have to do it a little bit differently, but we will be covering job training guaranteeing employment, phony employment agencies, bogus business opportunities, working from home or working outside of Canada, and advance fees and overpayment. So that was in the video where you saw the individual depositing the check into the account and the fraudsters take off with the money, and I'll get into more details with that. So this section, it is a US content. However, it's really important to listen to the different scenarios these people are presenting, because A, they've happened to a lot of clients, and it gives you more information of how the frauds and the scams work.
Finding a job is tough, and it's hard work. You're looking for a way to earn money, not give it away, but it can be awfully tempting to pay someone who promises you a job.
I was desperate, and the ad said cleaning jobs were available. I called the number in the ad, and they said I could start working as soon as I paid $100 for certification.
I'd been looking for a job for months and needed help. For $4,000, they guaranteed me interviews with their clients and said they would find my money if I wasn't satisfied.
Scammers advertise jobs exactly where legitimate employers do, on popular websites, in classifieds, and even on TV. The ads sound so promising, whether it's for hourly work or an executive level job. Every ad raises your hopes, but ads placed by scammers come with a twist. You have to pay, and then there is no job.
It turns out there was no job, no certification, and no chance I was going to get my money back.
There was no access. There were no clients. Not only didn't I get any interviews, but they kept every dime I paid. What a waste. The study materials that were supposed to help me get a postal job were useless. And the company I paid has nothing to do with the postal service.
Let's face it, many con artists are good at what they do. They can sound very convincing, especially when your defenses are down. They may say they've got a job waiting for you, or they might guarantee to place you in a job. But you can't believe the promises, even when you want to. Legitimate companies don't make promises or guarantees about jobs. If an employer or employment service firm wants you to pay, even if they say it's for certification, training materials, or for their expenses, placing you with the company, don't do business with them. Legitimate employers and firms don't ask you to pay for the promise of a job. Some listing services and consultants write their ads or phone scripts to sound like they have jobs waiting for you. The truth is, they're only selling information about looking for a job, information that's generally available for free.
Remember, you shouldn't have to pay to get paid. Don't pin your hopes or your money on a promise. If you've been the victim of a job scam and paid someone for a job that didn't exist, we want to hear about it. Complain to the Federal Trade.
So who do we complain to? It's the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, and I do have on my slide, it does have the contact information for them as well. So if you are a victim or if your clients come forward with any information, it's the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. But what's important to note in that video, there was the woman that was saying she paid a placement agency. I had a participant in one of my workshops who had paid $20,000 to a headhunter that promised her connections with high-ranking government officials, and what ended up happening is obviously there was no connection, nothing, and she had spent her money and there was no way of getting it back. The other one, the gentleman was working for a cleaning company and they promised him some jobs and nothing fell through there. So it's really important. These are everyday things that can happen to anybody. It doesn't matter what your background is. It can happen to anybody. So moving forward, I've got some case studies here. And so usually, again, I break people up into groups. So basically, the first one is job training guaranteeing employment. You responded to a newspaper ad for 50 security officers, immediate openings. When you are told during the interview that in order to get a position, you must take a 2-day course to qualify as a security officer. You need to pay a $214 fee and sign the registration form. What would you do? So if you're working with your clients coming in that want to work for security companies, and the company's saying, well, before you become a security officer, you need to pay to take the course. So this is a gray area. Normally, again, you do not have to pay to obtain employment. With security companies, some of them, not all of them, are registered to be both the trainer and the employer. I would caution clients with those types of places because they usually make the bulk of their money off the training, and usually they don't end up having employment for the people when they're done. The more reputable security companies will hire the person as an employee and then have them do the training. So those are just some considerations there. So job training. So high salaries with the same company that offers the training. Often the training does not lead to employment, and legitimate employers will not recognize the certification. And this was a real case study from the ministry's files. And basically the next day the complainant tried to cancel his registration and get his money back, but the company wouldn't refund his money and refused to provide a copy of the contract. The next one I have is about phony employment agencies. So an employment agency offered to arrange interviews for you with prospective employers, but you have to pay an upfront retainer fee. You were told that the remainder would be refunded when you are hired, with the money paid by employers in exchange for the recruitment services. What would you do? So again, if you're working with clients that are working with recruiters or placement agencies or headhunters, it's really important that they do not pay for service. It's illegal in Canada to pay for that kind of service, so it's really important you have that discussion with them, or at least do some more research about the company. So fake employment agencies contact people who may have posted their resumes online or with the job search engine. Job hunters are invited to an interview and promised employment with substantial annual salaries. They are then pressured to sign a contract and asked to pay an administration fee for the job placement service. Again, this was a real scenario, and in this particular case, the complainant said she did not receive any referrals and the company refused a refund. So it's really important, and again, that pressure aspect, they pressure them to sign it. You know, you need to sign it only today, you have to do it. Also, what ends up happening is the victims never hear from the company again. They'll be given a list of referral companies that they've never heard of, or that they just have no work to offer. Complaints will be dismissed with a referral to, you know, read the fine print. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Yeah, I've got a couple now. So
Okay.
Melanie said that it's a good resource, and Melanie, this will be on the CSIS website, so it will be available for you. And Tammy's question is, have you had any experience with people using credit card as a method of payment? Is there greater protection using that payment method?
Credit card payment. What kind of payment, like online or at the store?
Maybe I'm going to unmute Tammy.
Okay.
Tammy, you're live. Do you have a question around that? Could you be more specific? Tammy? No, I've unmuted her. She has no mic. So
okay, no problem.
Well,
no problem. So
yeah, I'll read the question again. Have you had any experience with people using credit card as method of payment? Is there greater protection using that method of payment?
Okay, good question. So if you're using your credit card, it tends to be a little bit more safer because the credit card companies are aware of the fraud that happens. And so what they will do is they will, I'll give you a quick example. One day at home, I received a phone call and they asked if so-and-so lived there. They were asking if my husband had lived there. I'm like, all I had to say was yes, he lived there. And as soon as he got home, I said, you might want to check your credit card statement. And what had happened is they had charged $2,000 of camera equipment on his credit card, and all they had to do was confirm that that person lived at this address. So when we called the bank right away, we weren't responsible for the charge. So like I said, the banks, there's a little bit more protection on credit cards because they know a lot of fraud does happen, and if they do see fraud happening, I don't know if other people have experienced this, but even on your debit card, if they know a fraud or there's been a breach, the banks do contact you and tell you go into your local branch and change your access card.
And I think I think you answered Tammy, because she rectified her question, but I think, and it was credit card purchases often have protection if the product is faulty, and wondered if it was the same. So yeah.
Yeah. Banks they have whole fraud departments in the bank. So yeah, that's a good question, and a lot of people do purchase things with their credit cards. So good question. The next one is phony. Sorry, I wanted to show you another clip. So this is an example of a phony placement agency. So this is called Oil Rig Job Canada, and it says, you know, information about jobs in the oil industry. If you're looking to work in Canada's exciting oil industry, we can help. So the first flag when we're looking at this website, and I've gone to it several times, see how it says register now in the corner? There's no phone number to contact this company. So that was a red flag for us. And one of my colleagues had brought this forward because her friend had registered for this service. And basically what happens is they ask you, once you register, they ask you to pay $150 because you're paying for information on jobs on the oil industry. So again, the first flag is there's no phone number. Second of all, the company, like, they do have an address. The company is in Vancouver, but employment is in Alberta. So I'd be questioning that. And it sounds like you're paying for a service and information, but if you look at it's not a job. You're not getting a job. It's information about the job. what happened is there's actually no physical office for this company. I called, I did a Google search and I found a company next to the address, and I called there. I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. And they basically told me that it's a mailbox, and they see a person come once a month and pick up basically the checks from the box and leave. So they don't have a physical office. And again, I would check with the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center if you do have some concerns. Does anyone have any questions, or we're still good? Again, I'd like to talk about bogus business opportunities. So you are promised to be paid $1,200 to be a subcontractor for a cleaning company, and are also promised a certain number of cleaning contracts through them. You are provided in writing with a refund guarantee should the promised cleaning contracts fail to materialize. What would you do? So in this situation, the person becomes a subcontractor. Excuse me. So what happens is companies that advertise specialized business opportunities such as office cleaning, they promise the clients huge contracts in exchange for an investment fee, usually several thousand dollars. The paperwork suggests that the individual is a subcontractor. Why do you think when you sign the paperwork they have you sign as a subcontractor? Basically, if you try and sue them, you can't because you're a subcontractor. So even in the contracts these people draft up, again, it's very misleading. The company guarantees a certain number of clients with a specific time frame, or the investment fee will be refunded. But what usually happens is they fail to deliver the clients and they do not give you a refund. Again, this was a real case from the ministry's files, and they basically deemed that the consumer protection legislation did not apply to this person's situation and suggested they take the matter to small claims court. Any questions so far? Okay. Again, for bogus business opportunities, pyramid schemes are illegal in Canada, and basically they promise a large financial return for relatively small cost. Pyramid schemes, again, are very illegal, and basically in that one of the first videos I showed you where the gentleman was putting all the boxes in the garage, that's part of a pyramid scheme. Excuse me. Basically, the only way to get your money back is to recruit people. So basically, if recruiting people is more important than doing the actual job, then you might be involved in a pyramid scheme. And the fourth one is working from home or outside of Canada. You're invited for an interview by foreign employers and agents. You're told you've got the job and all you have to do is pay a few $100s for visas and other paperwork. What would you do? So in this situation, you're invited for the interview and you're told you've got the job, all you have to do is pay a few $100s, and this does happen quite frequently. What should we instruct our clients to do if they are looking to work outside of Canada? So generally you would direct them to the nearest embassy of the country they want to work for. It's usually not the process where you have to pay somebody else to do your paperwork and your visas. It would be very questionable. The next one is working from home. We always see a lot of ads, and there are legitimate companies that you can work from home. I know Pizza, for example, will give you a computer, they'll set you up with the equipment, and you can take the calls from home. And there's other legitimate companies that you can work home from, but it's really hard to tell sometimes. But the ads, you'll see them in the newspapers. They rope people into low-paying work and expect you to pay hundreds of dollars for equipment costs and materials. So for example, you'll see that ad that says, stuffing envelopes from home. But the catch is you have to pay, $500 to get the machine to stuff the envelopes. Another one you'll see is data entry computer work, where you're like, okay, I can do that, but you have to pay for their equipment and their computers. And turning out cheap handcrafted products as well. again, they would pay you very minimal for this, and it might not even, it could be stuff that they want you to purchase the materials, but you could have purchased it from another place. And again, they will ask you to pay in advance for the working materials, so you want to be very conscious of that as well. Now, the advance fee one is a very popular one. You're offered a job, and you are to be paid by check or direct deposit. The victim will likely cash the check that is mailed to them for the work completed. One of the tasks will be to use a money transfer company and wire a large portion of the money to the name provided in order to test the company's procedures or customer service. The victim will find out later that the check is counterfeit, thus making the victim accountable to pay for the funds that they wired. This is a very common one. The banks are getting better at stopping the checks before they even get into your account, but you still have to be very careful. It happens to, if you bring the check in, basically you're paying the fraudsters with your own money. So you really need to be careful of that one. So that's the advanced fee. There's also something called an overpayment, and these ones are where the person is actually receiving the check is owed that money for goods sold. So if anyone sells something on Kijiji or anything like that, this is where this kind of fraud comes in. So basically you place an item to sell, an interested buyer will contact you and they'll just pay for the price, and the check arrives or the deposit or the exchange is higher than the amount you agreed upon. You take the check to the bank, deposit it, withdraw the overpayment amount, or you wire the money back. You later discover that the check is actually forged, a forged document, and it's worthless, and the bank holds you accountable. And you've sent your money to the fraudsters and possibly with your sale item. Does anyone have any questions? So how do you protect yourself from that? Never agree to deal with the payer wishes to issue an amount for more than an agreed price. Know who you're dealing with. Try and confirm your buyer's name, their address, telephone number. And you also want to talk to your bank about the safest way to receive funds. In one of my other sessions, one of the participants had put up a dining room set for sale, and she received the check, and again it was for over the amount she was asking, and she knew, she had taken my workshop, so she knew it was a scam, but she said, you know, it can happen again to anybody. So how do you protect yourself? So if you've been approached by someone asking you to transfer money for them, it's probably a scam. Never send money or credit card information online to anybody. Again, I had a gentleman in another workshop where he had been emailed information from his bank asking him to update his banking information, and it was basically a scam. The minute he put in his name and updated his information, they withdrew, I think, $7,000 from his account. So never give out your information. Don't accept a check or money order payment for more than what you asked for. Examine the information on the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center website is absolutely amazing. They have all the different kinds of scams, what to look for, what to be more aware of as well. And really don't transfer money if you really don't know the person.
So Des, I do have a comment here from Cheryl, and she's basically saying, and maybe you can comment on this, that not all networking, marketing, multi-level marketing companies are scams. Legitimate business opportunities market actual products and or services. Another criteria is that it has to be possible for anyone to take money. I read that again. Another criteria is that it has to be possible for anyone to make more money than anyone who got involved before them. The Better Business Bureau is a good resource to check out possible business opportunities.
Absolutely. So a very good question. And there are, you're right, there are legitimate places. I used to order jewelry from, like, you know, the direct sellers or the Amways or things like that. Those are reputable because when someone joins Amway or any of those types of services, yes, they do pay for the products, but they are They don't have to pay for like, you know, hundreds and hundreds of that particular product. They only pay for the products that they're going to sell. So in that case, it's okay if it's, sorry, it's okay if it's direct selling. It's not a problem if it's a direct selling situation because it balances off. It's not like the company is giving them, you know, 5,000 lipsticks you have to sell by Friday. So there are lots of, yes, lots of reputable direct selling places where you do purchase to get in and become part of their sales team. I hope that answers your question.
Yep.
And the Better Business Bureau is definitely one of the resources I was going to suggest to look. They're absolutely wonderful. You can do some more. That's the key, is doing your research. And I'm not saying all work from home places are fraudulent, but you do have to do your research. So normally in the presentation, again, I would hand out some fake job ads and see if people could identify them. But I do have some samples for you to see here. So this one came in from my colleague. Very sorry. This one came in from my colleague, and if you look at the top of it, it's from Western Canada Employment at Outlook.com. So the client had applied to a general labor position, $15 to start, great. And so if you look at the language they use, we would like to tentatively offer you this position in Ottawa, which would commence next Wednesday. So there's the pressure. It's starting next Wednesday. They've got that pressure there. All that we require is a clean criminal record check if and when you have successfully passed the screening process. So look at the things they're looking for. They want full name, date of birth, which is illegal, the sex, mailing address, phone number, and or email addresses. So this is part of identity theft. It says, this is where it even gets more interesting. You can pay $40 for a criminal record search via email money transfer to Western Canada Employment Outlook. So when we talk to our clients about getting a criminal record check, who usually does it? Usually the client will go to a police station and do the criminal record check. The fact that this employer is asking for money to do the criminal record check is a red flag. You'll be reimbursed the $40 on your first paycheck, so there's that reimbursement. Send this payment at your earliest convenience, blah, 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 blah. If you look at the bottom, they are situated in Ottawa, so I do not recommend this to anybody, but my colleague and I said, let's go for a walk. And we went to that address because I wanted to see what this was about because the phone number was not working. So we went to that address, and our first flag was there was nothing in the lobby identifying this Western Canada Employment Service. We went up to Suite 406 and knocked on the door, and it turned out to be a language school on the entire floor. So this company didn't exist. It was all fraudulent. So these are the things I want you to look for when you're working with your clients. This is another one my colleague had sent to me. It's called an independent contractor agreement, whatever that means. What do we notice about this? When you're first looking at it, does anyone notice anything about it? So the first thing, there's no company name. So if it was Shoppers Drug Mart, whatever company, there's no company name. If you look very carefully under the "and," it says review service. So there's the company name. In addition, the language they use below, I couldn't understand that. There's a lot of legal terms in there that the average person would not be able to go through. So what I ended up doing was sending this contract to my lawyer. And again, in various communities, there's free legal clinics. There's the Law Society of Upper Canada allows you 30 minutes for free with a lawyer. So there are legal places that can look over contracts such as this. Basically what the lawyer said is, doing a quick review, there are a few red flags. It says the company is federally incorporated, which is very rare. Their office is in BC in an apartment building, but the area code is California and the phone is disconnected. I would not agree to the independent contract terms. To be sure, you can request a corporate search to confirm the company exists. And so you can go to any local library and request a corporate search to see if the company really does exist. And again, you can bring it to local free legal clinics and university clinics as well. I decided to dig a little bit deeper, excuse me, and I went to their website. And this is what I found under companies that they've worked with. Does anyone see anything interesting about the companies they've worked with? So basically, if I wanted to research these companies that have done service, I can't. How am I going to look up company R? How am I going to look up company GBC or company H or company Inc? It'd be near impossible to find if these are legitimate companies. So there was another red flag. So what are companies doing about fraud? We know it's out there, we know what to look for, but what are companies doing about it? So Bell sent this out to its customers. We have recently seen an increase in fraudulent phone calls and phishing emails from parties claiming to be Bell. These fraudulent communications may ask you to complete a survey, update your information, or promise you some kind of incentive for an attempt to trick you into disclosing your account details or other sensitive information. So here's a case where the company is warning its customers about not to answer or give up information. Air Canada, I thought this was great. Air Canada posts all legitimate job openings on this website. Any other opportunities that are listed elsewhere and do not appear on this site should be considered fraudulent. Please be aware before submitting your personal information. And that goes, I think, for a lot of job postings. If you can't find it on the original or the company's website, I would be cautious. TD sent this one to me. Thank you, TD. TD fraud text alerts. This is new. Please ensure your mobile phone number is up to date, blah, blah, blah. But here it says we have some exciting news starting this month. We'll be launching a new account security feature called TD Fraud Alerts. So basically, they instantly send you a message, and if they detect any suspicious activity, excuse me, with your access card, they'll just send you and say, you know, did you purchase this? And you just click yes or no. So that's one way. Here at the college as well, they sent us a sample of a fraudulent email to be careful of. And again, it's that pressure. So this particular one is please verify your account within the next 48 hours in order to avoid a full online suspension. So there's that fear again. So your heart starts pounding. Oh my God, what? I didn't do anything. What online suspension? And basically what happens if you see, follow the secure verification page to proceed to an effective online authentication. And the minute you click on there, it's going to take you to another website, and that's where where they'll collect the information, because they're taking you out of a safe email and they're taking you somewhere else. It's interesting, at the bottom it says we will reimburse you 100% for any losses to your personal banking accounts. Mostly they're taking your account information. And this is the second half of it. So if you're an iTunes customer, you're like, well, I didn't buy that, and I didn't buy that. And so again, if you haven't authorized this transaction, click on the link below to get refunded. So again, your heart starts pumping. You're like, I didn't purchase that, I want my money back. And you click on the account, and it'll take you to, again, the fraudulent websites.
I do have a question. From Cheryl. She's asking, are you aware of any examples where someone's name and or SIN is used by someone else when applying for a job? Maybe someone not able to legally work in Canada.
So if I understand the question correctly, is someone is posing to be somebody else by using somebody else's SIN number?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I had that happen to a gentleman in another workshop. He was applying for a trucking position, and they had requested his passport, his SIN number, his driver's license, and birth certificate to do a security check. And he had sent the information, and a few months down the road, the police show up at his door and say basically someone's been trying to get a job and basically assume his ID to commit crime and to do fraudulent things. So it definitely happens for sure. The best way to protect your SIN, like I said, never give out your SIN unless you're required to by law, or at the very end of the hiring process, and even then I still wouldn't give it out until I was actually at the employer's office. Does that answer Cheryl's question?
Yep.
Okay. If not, type in your question again or can add on. So just so you can see the numbers, in October 2015, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, I want you to look at the numbers. So for the month of October, they got 4,440 complaints. Of those complaints, the victims were 1,022. Look at the dollar loss, $4 million in 1 month. ID theft, so back to Cheryl's question, is 676. ID fraud, so not only is your ID gone, now someone's trying to commit fraud with your ID, is 1,625. And look at the ID fraud loss. It's almost $700,000 in a month. So it's a very lucrative for fraudsters to be doing that. So here's another resource for people. It's the Consumer Beware List by the Ministry of Consumer Services. What you do is basically would type in the name of the company that you'd like to see if they're fraudulent or not. The only catch to this is that someone had to have made a complaint about the company to appear in here. So if no one's complained about it, it's not going to be in here. So how do you protect yourself? So be cautious if you're asked to pay for, again, training in exchange for a job. The employer offering you a job has no physical address or contact person. The employer seems willing to hire anyone with no qualifications or experience, and we've seen those job ads, no experience necessary, will train. Be wary if you're asked to pay for an upfront fee from a placement company to obtain a job. Don't pay up front for a not to be missed opportunity. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Again, please pay attention to the high pressure sales techniques, and if people refuse to take no for an answer. Avoid ads that ask you to call a special number. Again, many times the number is long distance and you will be billed for that. Beware if the company refuses to provide you with references, and even then you never know about references. Again, never give out your social insurance number, credit card number, or any other financial information. And it's really important to do the face-to-face approach. So if someone comes to your door, asks to see their identification, you don't have to let them in. And also, if you're not expecting anyone to come to your door, don't answer it, because chances are, and again, I'm not trying to do any fear-based mongering here, but if you're not expecting anyone, chances are someone's trying to sell you something at the door. And you know those water heater or let me change your water filtration system, they come and knock on the door, the energy companies as well. And one time in my home, someone had knocked on the door and I didn't want to answer it, but my kids made me do it. So I answered the door, but I didn't open it. I used to have a window on the side, and I'm like, can I help you? And the gentleman's like, ma'am, we've been commissioned by the city to change all the hot water tanks in this neighborhood. I need to come inside and we need to replace it. I said, that's interesting. It's a new water tank. I don't think it needs to be replaced. And he's like, no, we have to come in and change it. Ma'am, I need you to open the door. And he was very insistent. And I know, you know, in these fields there's pressure to do sales and to earn a living, but it didn't make sense to me, and so I actually had to force him off my property because I said I was going to call the police if he didn't move, because he's like, ma'am, I have to come inside, your water tank can explode. So it's just, again, that pressure techniques. And there's lots of articles you can Google and see about people that have been, they sign on the contract, and once they sign on it, either their rates go up or the rental rate will go up. So it's really important not to sign anything, and you can avoid all that, but just don't answer it if you're not expecting anybody. There's also telephone traps. They still exist. If you receive a phone call out of the blue, always ask for the name of the person you're speaking with, who they represent. Don't respond to text messages. In another workshop, this woman was telling me that her, I guess, phone got compromised, and an email was sent out to all her family and friends saying that she's been in the hospital and she needs money to get out of the hospital, and her family had responded with payments through PayPal and things like that. So again, it's really important to be aware of what's going on. Dealing with suspicious or unsolicited offers, please do not open emails if they're spam or garbage. Just click delete. Don't click on links. Never call a number that you see in a spam email, even to unsubscribe. And so if you're clicking on unsubscribe and it says you have successfully been unsubscribed, that's fine. That's on the legitimate side. If you click unsubscribe and it takes you to another box asking for your information all over again, I would be hesitant to fill in that information because they don't need it. You're just clicking unsubscribe. Why do you have to fill that in again? So who do you contact? So usually I tell people start with your local police because they do have anti-fraud departments. And then from there you're welcome to contact the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, Consumer Protection Ontario, and the RCMP as well. They all have fraud departments to deal with as well. So there's Consumer Protection Ontario, Ministry of Government and Consumer Services, Office of Consumer Affairs, the Competition Bureau, like I said, RCMP, OPP, and the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. So hopefully, just some final notes, I hope that after attending this workshop, you're able to recognize what employment fraud looks like, what it sounds like, everything about it, how to report it, and basically how to stop it. I do want to thank you all for taking your afternoon to spend with me and for learning more about this. And thank you, Janet, for giving me this opportunity. And I hope everyone learned something today from the workshop.